Thank you for staying with us. Former Governor of Kwara State, Abdulfatah Ahmed, who was governor from 2011 to 2019, has been accused of diverting the sum of 10 billion naira. According to reports, the former governor was detained by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission for alleged fraudulent transaction that took place during his tenure as governor. Abdulfatah Ahmed is said to be cooperating with investigators as they delve into details of the alleged financial misappropriation. Well, joining us in the studio is lawyer Inibehe Efyong. And via Zoom, good morning, by the way.
Good morning. Good morning.
And joining us via Zoom is former Chief Press Secretary to former Kwara Governor, former Chairman NUJ, Lagos State Council, Wahab Oba. Good morning, Mr. Oba. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Good morning. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. I'll begin with you. Your former principal talked to us about this matter. He been quizzed by the EFCC for alleged diversion of 10 billion naira.
Yeah, this is an ongoing investigation by the EFCC. Since he left office, he's been invited twice at the office in Abuja, and like you already said, he's been cooperating. He has said that stands with that number, that is ready to give account of his stewardship anytime he's called upon to do so. Of course, because he feels he has nothing hidden away from the public. So as a public figure he was, he's still very, very ready to give account of his stewardship. So he's been doing that. They've been asking questions about almost everything about his stewardship, and he's giving them the answer to the complaints. Like I said, to drop your remark.
Yeah, so in 2021, he was questioned by the EFCC, concerning an alleged diversion of funds amounting to 9 billion naira. Could you help us clarify the outcome of that investigation and how it relates to the current investigation going on?
Well, I think only the EFCC can give account of that, the outcome of that investigation. They invited him, he honored them, queried him, questioned him, he answered them. And until now, it's the same question, that he has answered over and over, that has also been answered without any new evidence, without new, no new documents, for him to respond to. So it's the same question. So it's the EFCC that will tell us the outcome of that investigation and why now they are asking him about the same question that has answered over and over again.
And what has been his response so far to some of these allegations given to him? Since he said it has been same questions, how has his responses rather been?
His response is always cooperating with them. He has explained the KWRSC, the KWIR, that's the internal revenue generation mechanism that he established, which is working very well, which has assisted the state in meeting his obligation to the people. The question about the KP3, that's the private partnership arrangement that we made when there was possibility of funds to execute projects. And all these things have been working. So if you ask them, and the same answer that it has now, nothing different from what was asked in 2021.
All right, let's bring the conversation to the studio now, where we have lawyer Inibehe Efyong. Inibehe, from what he has said, talking about Wahab Oba, he said the governor has been answering these same questions since 2001.
Yeah.
Yes, that he has been quizzed and is still being quizzed with regards to the same issues. What can you interpret from what you see is happening? Could there be gray areas in all of these quizzes that makes the EFCC still want to call him back to answer same questions? What could be the missing link?
I think I want to give EFCC the benefit of doubt. What is important is that there's an ongoing investigation. There are issues for which EFCC is seeking clarification from the former governor. I'm not going to be in a hurry to say that this is persecution. I would rather say we wait let the investigative process run its full course. Because indeed we have seen cases where the EFCC will dissipate public funds, file charges in court, and then at the end of the day, those charges are dismissed or otherwise struck out on grounds of lack of sufficient evidence. So if the prosecution has to succeed, if the effort will not be wasted, then the investigation has to be thorough, it has to be forensic, it has to be seen to have been done meticulously. Now, my perception about governors in Nigeria is not a favorable one, and I've never hidden my sentiments in that regard. And I usually make an admonition to Nigerians that we have corruption at the federal level, but corruption is worse at the state level in this country.
How so?
I will always insist that governors are more corrupt than presidents in Nigeria. At the federal level, there could be some semblance of accountability. You could have a member of the National Assembly pretend to be raising a motion. You could have instances where even MDS, right? We've seen MDS being exposed during parliamentary hearings in the Senate and the House of Representatives. At the state level, there is little or no effort at transparency. There is little or no effort at accountability. Governors in Nigeria are demigods. Governors in Nigeria are above the law. Governors in Nigeria have captured the state judiciary. They have captured the state INEC. They've turned the legal government system to a complete embarrassment. There is no single institution at the state level in Nigeria, maybe except one or two, three exceptions, that one can point out at the state level that is functioning. So what that does is that when people occupy gubernatorial positions, when people are voted or assume positions of governors in this country, whether in the South, whether in the West, irrespective of their religious affiliation or political affiliation, they just immediately believe that this is their personal property, that the resources of the state belongs to them, and they can do whatever they want to do with it. And that is why we would see, for example, governors in Nigeria budget monies for things that are very ridiculous, at very outrageous amounts. Nobody, no single House of Assembly in Nigeria today, not in Kwara, not in Plateau, not in Akwa Ibom, not in Enugu, no single House of Assembly in Nigeria today or previously can checkmate a governor. Not even one. So when the EFCC comes out to say they're investigating a former governor, some of us are usually interested in seeing the outcome of that investigation. But let us go, beyond the playing to the gallery. EFCC recently came out to say they are reviving case of 13 former governors. And the first question that came to my mind was, why do you need to revive the cases? Why were the cases not concluded? In the first place, why do you need to reactivate the cases? We have also seen ICPC in the past come out and then roll out these numbers. Oh, certain numbers of governors are under investigation. At the end of the day, how many charges do we actually see in court? That's the question. How many convictions do we see in court? So for me, EFCC also has questions to answer to Nigerians. If it is the case that they are not being allowed to do their job, then if you were in the position to perform that function and you are being deprived of that responsibility, you should step aside. Yeah. So there has to be some actions. There has to be some explanations from EFCC. But on a lighter note, did you observe that the former Governor Ahmed was not paraded by the EFCC? When they took him into custody in Ilorin, did they parade him before the press?
Not at all.
How come that the internet fraudsters are paraded? How come that, in quote, or alleged internet fraudsters? How come that we see EFCC parade other people? How come that politicians are never paraded? I think that is a question that sometimes the media should put to them to answer. Why do we have the preferential treatment? So why do you think they are not being paraded? I mean, because it is obvious. Our criminal justice system is not really blind. There is the law for the rich, there is the law for the poor. That is what it has always been. That's right. Mr. Wahab, let me come back to you. They believe that governors usually are emperors of the state, and much more they've captured the state, just like our discussant here, Inibe Effiong, has said, a lawyer. Could you help us talk, bring us to, or revive our consciousness to how the former governor
Abdulfatah Ahmed, what measures did his administration take or have in place in ensuring transparency, accountability, and financial matters, particularly regarding the management of public funds?
Good, thank you so much. And let me respond specifically to what the learning barrister just said. Yeah, state governors, some of them are guilty of so many infractions. But I want to tell you, Kadudai, that when Fatah Ahmed was the governor, there was never any matter of financial implication that was not discussed at the state ESCO level and get approval. That's one. Secondly, the state assembly was very, very effective during this time. Let me give you a specific example. There was a time he wanted to get a bond of 20 billion naira to execute certain projects in the state. The assembly stood its ground and said no. They went to their constituency. They had public hearing at their various constituencies, not just at the state assembly, but at their various.
Mr. Alba, looks like we lost your audio. Could you check your microphone so we can have what you're saying?
Can you unmute yourself, please? Mr. Alba, can you hear us? All right, we'll have to come back to the studio to continue this conversation. I would have loved to hear his perspective, giving account of what his principal did at the time with regards to transparency and accountability, because he wanted to respond to some of the things you mentioned. Okay, we hear he is back. Mr. Wahab, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Okay, so could you repeat some of the things you said, because at some point we couldn't hear you again.
So, like I was saying,
right.
I said, yeah, some governors might be guilty of infractions. But during the time of Gov Ahmed, there was nothing he did without first the approval of the State Executive Council. Nothing. And this Executive Council meeting held every month as a routine. And then the Assembly was allowed to do and perform its responsibility. And I'll give you a specific example. That when the governor wanted to go for a bond of 20 billion naira to implement, some major projects, the Assembly went to nooks and crannies of states. They had, a public hearing at their various constituencies, and they came up and said, no, this bond will not fly. Just that the governor wanted it. So, and he allowed them, the decision to stand. And that's why he came up with the idea of KWRS. That is now functioning, that is the present state government is now enjoying. Before then, our idea was the neighborhood of 500 million, 600 million, thereabout. But with the introduction of KWRS, we were moving from that amount, 500 billion, to 1 billion, to 2 billion before we left. And the congestion then was that before 2020, we are going to, a level where the state will not even need the federal allocation to operate. So the government allowed all the tiers of the government to operate, and they did, they did operate effectively. So the governor, may not be said to be guilty of that. Again, the lawyer said, why was Ahmed not paraded, by the EFCC? How can you parade somebody that you are still investigating? He's not been found guilty. He has responded to all the questions that are put before him. So why you parade him? The case of fraudsters, they are confirmed fraudsters. But this one, you are asking a question, he's responding. So why you parade him?
All right. Let me get back to some of the issues you raised, because you have said that the governor was as transparent, accountable, and all of it, like my colleague asked earlier. So if he was transparent, if he was accountable and engaging the State Assembly, where is this accusation then coming from? Because it is often said that there is no smoke without a fire.
Well, you see, that is why we are now very worried about this current investigation. or this current legislation of the government, because it is the same questions that has been asked over and over, which he has answered, that has been, it's been asked again. So we are worried. We are also worried now, more, because since he was detained Monday, he walked into the office around 10:41 a.m. in the morning. He's not be allowed to speak with his wife. He's not be allowed to speak with any member of the family. He's not be allowed access to his medication. And the governor has a he says he's not be allowed access to this, medication. So we are worried. If it's all about just investigation, it's not about persecution. Why not allow him access to his medication and to his wife? The one that has been trying to get across to him, they have not allowed them. The heads have been trying to get across to him. So that's why we are worried now. And it's not just about, financial impropriety or corruption. Maybe, which the yes needs to explain, something else is involved. And you remember, in the last few weeks, the sales have been very volatile, asking the current governor about 17.9 billion that he said is in the bank. The bank, we don't know. This we don't know. Kwara also asking the current governor about the issue of 17.8 billion, which he wants to use to renovate Kwara Hotel. We say that if somebody has said he can do it for 35 billion, why are you giving to an external contractor for 17.8 billion? So it's been very hot, in the last 2 weeks. So maybe this person is not unconnected with that situation.
Right. So invariably, you are saying that he's still in EFCC custody as we speak. Is that what you are confirming?
Yes, he's still. We expect that at least by 10:40 a.m. this morning, which will be 24 hours, 48 hours after the detain, maybe the EFCC will have to release him because he's still, he's still with them. And the opponent thinks that it's not allowed his medication.
Right. So, Mr.
I say again. I'm sorry to interrupt you. The EFCC, since Monday where he was detained, they keep changing the goalposts. One, they were asking for 2 federal directors as shorties for him to be released. Why federal director for a case that you transferred from Abuja because of this same jurisdiction to Ilorin? Why are you not asking for 2 federal directors as shorties? That was all. When the shorties were brought in, they were not asking them to provide landed property, not in Ilorin, not anywhere in Abuja, but in Maitama and Asokoro. Where do you want directors, federal directors to get land in Maitama or Asokoro?
Interesting.
So, all these things
So this is why you believe that there's more to this than what meets the eye.
Sure.
Mr. Effiong, from a legal perspective, what rights do you think, does the former governor have while in custody of the EFCC, particularly regarding the, access to medical care and legal representation? And what exactly do you think are the implications if he's not able to provide the sureties as well as, the landed properties as required by the EFCC?
Well, the rights that ineos to the former governor as a suspect in a criminal investigation, what we call pre-trial rights, those are the same rights that a truck pusher is entitled to. It is the same rights that an alleged Yahoo is also entitled to. So Governor Ahmed has no rights or special rights that accrues to him by virtue of his position as a former governor. Having lost immunity, he's an ordinary citizen and should be treated accordingly. There should be no special treatment. Nobody is above the law. Nobody should also be treated under the law. He's still presumed innocent until proven guilty. He's entitled to right to bail, a constitutional right to bail. EFCC cannot keep him beyond the period allowed by law. He should be admitted on administrative bail pending the outcome of the investigation. But again, as I said, I am always reluctant to defend governors or former governors because I know from experience that most of their actions are indefensible. Don't forget that the successor of this governor, Abdulrazak, had commissioned an investigation into the tenure of his predecessor. And that investigation at that 2020, when the report was published, alleged that about 11.9 billion of the state funds were misappropriated or stolen by the administration of Governor Ahmed. This has not been proved, but this is what was alleged. And part of that 11.9 billion, the allegation said that about 2 billion of cash was withdrawn in months to the 2019 elections. No documents were shown for what purpose that money was withdrawn. No explanation was given. This is what the audit report revealed. And then they recommended that those funds should be, recovered for the state. So I would not be surprised if the ongoing investigation is connected with that audit. I want Governor Ahmed to answer for his stewardship in Kwara State. I want him to explain to the people of Kwara who have suffered, who are under penury. I have been to Kwara, and I know that poverty is an issue in Kwara just like many parts of the country. So we cannot have a country where citizens are struggling, right, to feed, where families can't pay school fees, where many Nigerians can't even pay their rent, even transport, and then you have 36 individuals, 36 demigods in 36 states. Basically, using the billions of the state's funds the way they like. I will be very reluctant to condemn EFCC when it has to do with governors. And that is why, maybe this is relevant. When I recently learned that the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is supporting state police, I said, well, nothing is wrong with state police in itself. But who are you going to give this state police to? The same governors? Governors that have bastardized the resources of their states? Governors that are doing whatever they want? Governors that nobody can question? I keep saying that you can question a president in Nigeria. You cannot question a governor. So when he says Governor Ahmed was accountable, Governor Ahmed was transparent, I don't believe any of that. Because there is no indication to that effect. I don't believe any of that.
But it does not belie the fact that he could probably be accountable and transparent while he was the government.
I don't believe it. I would not give any governor the benefit of doubt. Right. There is no governor in Nigeria, to my knowledge, that a House of Assembly can hold accountable. Not one. In fact, if you look at instances where attempts were made to impeach governors, like the drama that is playing out in Rivers State, it is for political consideration. It is never because they disagree over management of funds. In my home state, we saw a situation where even the government-owned commission audit report by the Accountant General revealed how state resources were stolen. When the report leaked, the House of Assembly pretended they were going to investigate it. I'm giving you an example. On the day of the public hearing, some of us appeared. When they saw our faces, guess what happened? The chairman of the committee, Right Honorable Dokirian, suddenly said, we want to go on break. From there, all of them drove to Government House. They said they were going to reconvene by noon. That House of Assembly committee never started again. And that was the end of the matter. What did we hear next? It was Printer's Devil. That was the problem. So corruption at the state level is worse than corruption at the federal level. And that is why EFCC has to tell Nigerians why they have not been able to prosecute former governors. But guess the painful part of this? And that is why I empathize with the officers of the commission. What the former regime, the Buhari administration, did, that you had the EFCC spending resources, done it over a decade to prosecute the former governors, and they secured conviction. At the end of the day, what did President Buhari do? A man who claimed he was fighting corruption. He gave them amnesty. He said, go and see no more. He granted them, prerogative of mercy. Right. That should not be tolerated.
Right. Mr. Oba, so, well, with all of these things going on, well, regardless of what Mr. Inibe Effiong thinks, he has actually spoken from legal perspective as well as talking about what he sees and which informs his own opinion. But with all of these allegations against your principal, how do you intend to cooperate with the EFCC? And you also raised the issue of legal jurisdiction of the case being moved from Abuja to Ilorin. How do you intend to cooperate with the EFCC, and what other options are you exploring so far?
Can you unmute yourself, please? Yeah.
Carry on. We can hear you.
Let me briefly refer to the reports. He said the governor, commissioned and alleged that the governor was guilty of 11 billion, thereabout. I'm sure everybody who's keen in Kwara policies will know the genesis of that report. First and foremost, if you are raising an audit query, who should raise the audit query? to be the Attorney General. Attorney General will raise an audit query, and then will now ask questions where it is necessary for the president concerned. If he's not satisfied, he takes to the assembly. Then if the assembly is not satisfied, they now commission an external auditor. But if you just bring just anybody anyhow without an audit query, that then it raises a lot of questions. And that's why the government has not deemed it to, either go to court or do anything about that. All these things are political. All these are political. And having said that, the governor, former governor, Abdulfatah Ahmed, has always been ready and has always been cooperating with the EFCC. And that's why we are worried of what is happening today. After 40 years, nobody is asking for any preferential assistance for the government. But please, let that be transparency, let that be due process. Let everybody believe that what we're doing.
But with the way things are going, don't you think he should begin to look into taking legal steps to addressing this matter? If you claim he is as transparent and this is obviously political.
Now, yes, we are waiting for 10:40 this morning to see what will be the action of the EFCC, because that is the maximum period they have to detain him. If they don't do that, then we'll explore other legal options. So,
all right, let's come back to the studio now. Inibehe, at this point, what would it take for us to begin to hold governors to account?
It has to take mobilization by Nigerians. We are not going to depend on the House of Assembly of States. The House of Assemblies have been emasculated. But we are not going to depend even largely on the state judiciary. I don't want to personalize it. My own experience at that. Right. So that is not to say that at the state level that judges are not doing the right thing. Judges are doing the right thing to the best of their ability. But don't forget that part of the problem is that governors have stifled the resources of the judiciary. Governors have ridiculed judges at the state. Every governor in Nigeria that buys SUV for judges, they will call the press. And so I have bought cars for my judges. They even personalize it.
Can the judges reject the gift themselves?
Well, I'm saying that these are things that judges are statutorily entitled to. But governors make it look like they're doing them a favor. But when they buy cars for commissioners, we don't see that kind of fanfare. When governors buy cars for themselves, when governors buy cars for their wives,
if you
they don't make it an issue.
You being bought a car means you dancing to the tune of the governor.
It is what they're entitled to. It is not a favor. But governors make it look like it is a favor. So what does this do? What that does is that at the state judiciary, because if you are going to hold chief executive of states accountable, you need the judiciary, you need the House of Assembly, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And I'm telling you that today, that houses of assembly are under the pockets of governors. And at the state judiciary, they don't have financial autonomy. I know a state in Nigeria where in fact, most states in Nigeria, chief judges have to basically kneel to beg governors for funding. How do you hold them accountable? It has to take Nigerians to mobilize, to hold their leaders accountable. Only Nigerians can hold governors accountable. And EFCC must also continue to act. And finally, we need to revisit the issue of the immunity clause. I don't think we should have immunity in our constitution.
All right, we'll have to leave this conversation here. We must thank you, lawyer Inibehe Effiong, for your time, as well as former Chief Press Secretary to former Kwara State Governor, former Chairman NUJ Lagos State Council, Wahab Oba.
I want to say that if anything happens to the former government, because he's terribly sick now, and he's not being allowed, free access to his medication. If things also happen to him, then the state should be held responsible.
We'll leave the conversation here now. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time.
Thank you.
Well,